Hi, Easy here. Welcome to another patch note video. I'll be talking about a lot of the nuances and details in the patch note that are not really evident or obvious, along with some of the details that are already on the page. This was the patch note for January 9th. It was mostly a PvP balance patch along with some convenience fixes for alts, but there are some other details that you guys should know about. First off, Mokoko earrings have now been made a compound, so you can now give it to your alt or another character through the account bound stash. So whenever you open up your stash, you can find a smaller box to the left of your main storage. You can now put in your Mokoko earring into that storage and transfer it between characters in your in the same server. Now, the Mokoko earring, if you've ever destroyed it or dismantled it or whatever, the earring will now be mailed to your recently logged in character, and that character can now put it into other players, your account bound storage box, and give it to another alt. The new earring is no longer dismantleable or destroyable, so you don't have to worry about accidentally getting rid of it. So if you have an alt that you're working on that might have a good use for Mokoko earring, you can now put it on them. Next thing is the adventure journal, the end button, adventure guidebook, whatever you want to call it, where it keeps progress of your completion in the map. Is now account bound. They made it so that whatever you've completed across your characters are now gonna be summed up instead of having just taking the highest one and then copying that off. So you don't really have to worry about all of the let's say some of the wandering merchant food items that you got or collectible items that you have that are somewhat rare. You don't have to worry about those being overwritten by another character. They'll all be combined together. Some of the rewards from adventure journals are not acquirable more than once. So there are some account server-wide one-time reward items such as crystal boxes and feathers, which is a little bit of a shame. But you can now acquire skill potions, whatever else like stat potions. All of these things are now acquirable right away if you reach the region. If you unlock the region, so you can't make a level 10 character, grab skill potions from Ardentine and Shoeshire 60% completions on a level 10 character. You actually have to go to those locations physically to unlock the skill point potions and whatnot. Next up, we have some Heart of the Island changes for alts. If you guys haven't raised an alt, Heart of the Islands are one of the most annoying parts of making an alt. Now all of these islands are gonna have shareable hearts, and by shareable, it just means that if you completed any of these islands on one of your characters, it doesn't even have to be your main one. If the game records that you've completed one of these islands in your server, the rest of your characters can simply go to that location and complete a 1 to 5 minute quest that's extremely easy to do and get the heart immediately. So it's a very good change for some of these islands because a lot of these islands are very RNG oriented. So for example, the New Moons, I believe this is a New Moon Island where you hunt, Panda Poo Poo Island, Turtle Island. I'm not sure why Turtle Island's in here, but this is a questline island. Secret Base X301, Freedom Island, Pirate Village Atlas. This one is actually quite annoying because this one's 16,000 pirate coins, which is very hard to collect. So this one is very good that it got made easier for alts. Giant Mushroom Island, Total Silver Island, Kalterts, which is the Slave Island, Argon, which I don't think anyone really has because it's stupidly annoying to get in the first place. The City of the Forgotten, Blacktooth's Holding, whatever you want to call it, Riverheim. I'm not sure where this is. Spida Island. So all of these are fairly annoying to get. Most of these are luck-driven island hearts, and two of them are actually just straight up profession-oriented hearts So if you guys are worrying that like, oh, my main is a lumberer, how am I gonna get the heart from fishing island or hunting island? Well, now you can get it on your alt or something like that, and have an easy quest to do on your main, so that you can acquire it without too much trouble on your main. Some of the collectible items, such as Giant's Heart, Heart of the Islands, and the Great Art Pieces. Some are gonna be only acquirable once per account. Some rewards are only acquirable once per account, and some are acquirable per character. And that distinction is made by using the emblem of your expedition level when you press Alt O on the item rewards. So some are going to be account bound, some are going to be character bound. This mostly refers to things like ship plans and Yenas tokens and Procyon tokens, the ship member. Things that are account bound, such as ships and crystals and things like that, those are the account bound rewards. So this means that you can't just make 6 characters and then keep getting rewards over and over again for some of these one-time rewards, which were intended to be, so rewards that were intended to be one-time only. And this is probably one of the bigger changes. I'm not sure how big of a change it is, to be quite honest. But if you guys are about to reach item level 400 and you have a lot of Acrosium left over, what a lot of people might do is switch it over to Acrosium 2s at an exchange rate of 25-1. But if you would like, instead of progressing as fast as possible on your main, you can put those Acrosium 1s and give it to another character at an exchange rate of 10-6. So it says that a wandering merchant that appears in major cities and islands will now have an Acrosium 1 box. This Acrosium 1 box can be purchased by using 10 Acrosium 1s, and the box itself will give you 6 Acrosium 1s. So it's a 10-6 exchange. The Acrosium 1s that you receive from the box is untradeable, meaning you can't just give it to a character and then later down the line you're like, oh, I don't want to play this, let me give it to another one. You can't really do that. I believe that's what it means. Or it just means that maybe it just means you can't trade it to other people. Yeah, maybe that's what it means. However, the basic idea is that you get the Acrosium 1 box on a main that you don't want to play anymore or have leftover Acrosium 1s. Buy the box, put the box into your account bound stash, like with Mokoko earrings, and then acquire that box or retrieve that box from another character and use it to get 6 Acrosium. So it's not really game changing or game breaking. It just makes it a little bit easier for people who already have relatively high item level characters over item level 400 to help gear up some of their alts a little bit faster. So this can be a pretty big deal if you're just about to reach item level 400. If you're already above item level 400 like I am and have already spent all those Acrosiums to get it to or rather, if you've already spent the Acrosium to get Acrosium 2s, you're kind of straight out of luck. And the exchange rate for Acrosium 2 into Acrosium 1 is 1-2, so it's not really that good either. So honestly, I don't think it's too. It doesn't impact a lot of players outside of the players who are just at this cusp of reaching item level 400, or people who haven't spent their Acrosium 1s when they got to level 400. So if you're one of those people, this is a really good change, and if you want to reroll, this is a really good change. But for others, if you want to reroll and you're about to reach item level 400, maybe it's a good idea to start saving up some of your Acrosium 1s to give it to another character. I think that might be a really good idea. But this is you can't just put in Acrosium 1s on every single character into your compound stash and then just retrieve it on another character. You have to be a minimum at level 400. And once you're above item level 400, you no longer receive Acrosium 1s from opponents' dailies and whatnot. So it's a bit of a it's only for very specific people, in my opinion. Yeah, so it's a good change, but it's not like a game breaking change. Next up, we have some class balance patches. These are mostly focused towards PvP. These are mostly focused PvP. So if you're someone who's interested in PvP and are very invested into PvP, you might have to look into these patch notes yourselves to really get an idea of what's going on. I only PvP'd a little bit. I reached like gold, and then I went back down to bronze, and then I'm back up to silver, etc., etc. I don't like the PvP because it's not fun with the high ping, but in terms of balance, all classes now, whenever they have different buffs that increase your evasion chance, only the highest evasion chance will apply. And this is very important because bards and battle masters could stack evasion chance, and basically battle masters would have like 50% evasion chance, and that was pretty dumb. Not only like those two classes, but anyone that got buffed by bards. So it was an issue, which it's a good step, but it's not really evasion as a whole shouldn't exist, to be quite honest. I don't think it's a good mechanic. I don't think it's a fun mechanic. Yeah, I just it's too strong when it works. It's too weak when it doesn't. I don't think it should exist, but that's a different story. PvP system, diminishing return whenever you get hit by attacks that prevent you from moving, whether it's stagger, flinch, or status effect. The little scale that pops up that makes you immune to those effects will now pop up faster. So you won't be CC locked forever until you die. There will be a time where you can just escape. I don't know when that is. I don't know how much they reduced it, but they did say they reduced it. For Berserkers, some of your skill animations have changed for Chainsword, Windblade, and Shoulder Charge. Some of my Berserker friends have stated that they don't really see a difference, but that is, I believe, up to, yeah, I don't know. I don't play Berserker, so they did say that the delay has been reduced, but my Berserker players have stated that they don't really see the difference. So that's, I don't know how to interpret that. Warlords got pretty much, yeah, Warlords are, it's a sad day for Warlords. All of these changes are also relevant in PvE. They're not just PvP. Except for skills that specifically say PvP. Okay. So lift attack, you will no longer for lift attack only for PvP. You're now flinch immune instead of stagger or displacement immune. For shield charge, you're now flinch immune instead of displacement immune. And also the frequency of the hitbox will now go from 0.2 seconds to 0.3 seconds, but the damage will remain the same. Counter spear, I think this is the biggest one for PvE players. Every single person who uses counter spear uses rapid preparation, which reduces the cooldown of counter spear but decreases the damage as well. Now the counter spear went from negative 12 second reduction to 8-second reduction, so it's a 4-second difference. It's actually I think a buff for PvE if you use it on cooldown, but in terms of damage, but in terms of utility, which is what the whole point of counter spear is, it's a pretty substantial nerf. So do keep this in mind if you are a Warlord player. Nelasia's aura, the shield thing that people that Warlords use, the AoE buff, they decreased the maximum damage reduction from 45% to 40%. And whenever you use the extended duration, it increases duration by 3 seconds instead of 4 seconds. So it's a small nerf. It's not a substantial nerf. The damage utility of Nelasia's still remains. Guardians, Warlord ult, the shield gauge recovery amount was decreased in PvP only. This is PvP only change. And there was a rune that that warlords and warriors have, which decreases your or I think this is just for warlords, that decreases your damage taken per hit by 5% up to 80%. That's been reduced to 40%. Now, not many people actually played against this or played with this, because this PvP rune can be only acquired by having like 45 something freaking hearts. So not many people got to face it, but it was extremely oppressive and made warlords basically unkillable. But that's pretty much it for warlords. I think they deserve a lot of these nerfs. They're really annoying. A lot of their other toolkits haven't been touched, such as their shocking stuff and like their jumps and stuff. I don't know what it means because I don't really pay too much attention to PvP, but they have been nerfed. This is another big one, Battle Masters. The little flippy floppy characters that keep knocking you down and makes you so that you can't get up. They're now less annoying because first off, the biggest part of their toolkit, which made them very oppressive, was the rune that made it so that they were status immune when they used skills, when they used orb skills or identity skills. So whenever you were getting zapped, whenever you're getting tornadoed, whenever you were getting that little explosion thing, they were status effect immune, which means that you can't actually interrupt them at all whatsoever. But now they are displacement immune only, which is still pretty decent for Battle Masters, but it's not as strong as it was before. So you can't compete against another player who is using status effect control. So you can't counteract, let's say, Hawkeye's Claymore Mine. But overall, the change itself, I think, wasn't very much deserved. It was too strong. Whisper, the 30-second nuke that Battlemaster used that was instant, the damage has been reduced by 46%, which I think was also pretty much needed. This was way too strong in PvP because of the instant damage aspect. There's no way to play around it. You just get hit. The tornado skill for PvP, and this is PvP only. This is not PvE. So for PvP, the damage has been reduced by 46%. PvE, the damage remains the same. Tornado PvP only, the ice tornado tripod, which freezes enemies and gets rid of people's super armor, which is the reason why people were using it, now no longer flinches enemies. So you can't just use it on top of like a person who's about to use a skill that doesn't have flinch immunity and flinch them all the way through freeze. They will no longer be flinched. So it's easier for you to escape from this. It's easier for people to get out of the range and whatnot. So it's a pretty significant change, and I think it makes Tornado pretty much unusable in a lot of scenarios. I'm not sure exactly what to change. Like I'm not 100% sure what will change, but it is pretty difficult to use now. And another really big one is whenever you use the lightning zap punch, the one that would stun you from 15 miles away, whenever you use that ranged tripod, the initial motion delay has been increased significantly. It's basically unusable at this moment. I tested in the training room. It is unusable in PvP. So you don't have to worry about this skill anymore. Infighter, yeah, there's nothing here. Arcana, well, actually, it made it so that the chain is instead of costing 40 yellow energy and regenerating 20, it now halves that. So it is a little bit more usable. It's not as restrictive, but the skill itself wasn't even that. It's pretty good, but it wasn't that great in the first place. I'm actually, people might use it now. I'm not sure. But the main problem with Infighter isn't really this. It's the fact that they lack a lot of super armor and ways to deal with some of the stronger classes. So I'm not sure. Arcana, I don't know much about Arcana, so I can't really speak on this, but they made it so that I believe you now, like, some of these attacks flinch. Yeah, all like unlimited shuffle, dark reaction, and Call of the Fate now flinches under certain conditions in PvP. Bard's Stigma no longer flinches, which is a huge deal, because Bard's Stigma was such a huge zone control, not because of the damage, but because of the flinching effect. So this is really solid. They also reduce the movement speed of Stigma and disruptive noise, whatever, the little sparkly things on the ground. And they also decrease the damage of their ult in PvP only. They also decrease the damage reduction from 50 to 40%, and the evasion chance from 30 to 20%. Evasion chance from 30 to 20% in not just in PvP but also PvE. So it's a slight nerf. It's not much, but it's a slight nerf. I think the biggest one is probably the stat rune. Bars have a rune that increases their stat. So it was usually people would take crit and endurance to increase your damage and your defense. It now is halved. It goes from 400 to 200, which I think is substantially required. It was just really strong. For Devil Hunter, some of your skills got faster, such as somersault shot, agile shooting, and I don't know what this last one is. But it says whenever you use the super armor tripod, you are now super armored even during your charge. Hawkeye's got nerfed in terms of damage. They also made it so that whenever you use the survival tripod on one of your movement skills, like you go from 50% evasion rate for 2 seconds after using to 50% evasion rate while using, which means that some of the survivabilities of Hawkeye have been nerfed pretty significantly. Claymore, whenever you use the electric tripod, which is what people always use because it shocks enemies, the cooldown increases by 4 seconds, which makes it so that they can't use it as frequently. Charging shot, snipe, and Silverhawk's explosion damage, I believe, now is decreased by 8.3, 8.3, and 13.3 respectively for PvP. Next up, we have some raid changes. Raid level 2, 3, and 4. Some Guardian raids in these raids, so not all, but some, have been decreased. Their HP has been decreased. Mostly for some of the more difficult ones. So I'm guessing like Calventus. I know Armored Nocracina got nerfed. But yeah, so a lot of these bosses got nerfed in terms of HP. And also their part break battle items now require less. So you could probably just ignore blue battle items and just go in with training bombs and training shurikens. You could before, but now it's more consistent to bring it now. And some of the weekly raid stuff, I'm not really going to cover weekly raid stuff because pretty much majority of the population, as in everyone except for like 10 or 12, are not dealing with weekly raids at the moment. So you don't have to worry about that for now. But weekly raid bosses also have been pretty reduced in terms of HP, which makes it a little bit easier to handle. For Levinos, Levinos got nerfed during his enraged state, so his enraged state should be easier to deal with. Calventus, whenever he spawns orbs, a lot of the orb mechanics have been adjusted so that it's not as annoying to deal with. He's also very slow now. Maybe he was before. Calventus should not be an issue anymore, to be quite honest. It was true that he was overtuned, but I think he's a little bit undertuned now. Magma Chromanium, they change it so that he stays in the same location for a longer period of time, even after you break his part. So he's a lot more interesting to do now, or he's a lot less annoying to do now. And there's some bug changes with some of the tier 4 guardians. But probably the most relevant one is that Armored Nakrasina, before he used to stay in the same place over and over again. But it turns out that that was due to a bug where if Armored Nakrasina had a armor reduction debuff from whatever source, he would stay in the same place. That was a bug. So you do need to bring flares to Armored Nakrasina now. And Armored Nakrasina is now affected by corrosive bombs, the ones that you throw, the green bombs that increase part break level by 1. So it is now usable on Armored Nakrasina. So maybe bring it if you guys want to use training shurikens but want to be consistent. All of these skill changes are mostly bug fixes. They're not any balance changes. They're just mostly bug fixes. Cillian's commands. The most important one is the biggest one is cutscenes in platinum fields are now skippable, which is pretty massive for people who do platinum fields frequently. Also, the platinum field, one of the mushrooms now gives you more rewards. So that means more potions. I'm not sure how much more it is, but it just says it's more. Character is not really that much big of a deal. Items. Opponents +1, opponents a guardian +1, chaos dungeon +1. All of these extra tickets now reset on reset every day. So whenever dailies reset, these tickets will reset. So you can use a chaos dungeon ticket right before reset and then use another one right after reset, back to back, which is really nice. It still limits it to 1 per day, but it makes it so that there's no more 24-hour restriction, which makes it very hard to deal with. Some of the items that only stacked up to 99 now stack up to 999, which is pretty decent. It's mostly battle items and health pots. And weekly raid gear acquisition has been changed. This mostly means that previously how weekly raids function is that you would get random drops, whether it's a body piece or accessory or weapon, from the box that you open at the end. Now only accessories and slayer marks will drop from the box, and you use those slayer marks to purchase and upgrade Guardian Raid gear on the left side. It's pretty much the same way that Guardian Raid works for the regular raid. They just copied the system to weekly raids, but the main thing with this one is that the upgrade materials for weekly raid items is now materials from previous raids, from stage 1 through 4. So it uses materials from all 16 guardians. So if you guys have been saving up your materials from previous guardians, it's a good time to keep saving them. If you guys haven't been doing it, you better start now. I know that there's not a lot of space at the moment. I don't know why they implemented this before they implemented the raid material inventory, but who knows. That should be coming soon. So if you guys are at a lower tier and you plan on getting to weekly raids, start saving up some of those materials. It might come in handy later down the line. As for islands and sailing, Monte Island and Harmony Islands are now easier to participate in to get credit. I haven't been going to these because it's really frustrating when you wait 20+ minutes and not be able to do anything. And other than that, most of these, the rest of these are fairly unimportant. Let me just double check if there's anything that I should be aware of. Yeah, most of these are fairly unimportant, but if you guys do want to know what it's talking about, just use Google Translate. It's not too bad. If I use this right now. Yeah, most of these are pretty straightforward when you translate it. So don't worry too much about what, you won't know what's going on. Just if you guys have any questions over this, leave them down in the comments. Mostly just copy and paste the whatever you have questions about, and I'll If you guys have any questions, I'll make sure to answer those. But for the most part, the patch note has been all about some PvP changes, some convenience changes for alts, and some changes for raids. It wasn't what I wanted. I hope there's another patch next week that does address some of the issues that are present in the game. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video and the patch notes. It did take a little bit longer because, you know, I wanted to give you guys some insight on some of these perspectives, some of these changes, and why they were made. But for the most part, the patch notes are pretty straightforward. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.